Assalamualaikum. My name is Nuzafika Fati Kasim. I would like to explain about this, for this risk management assignment, I would like to explain about the company that we have choose, that is Intel Corporation. Intel Corporation has been found in July 18, 1968 and found by the founders in America, Robert Noyce, Gordon Moore, Arthur Robb, and now the CEO is Lip Button. And their mission to create the world-changing technologies that improve the life of every person on the planet. And the vision for a long term, they are to make engineer solution for their customer with the greatest challenge be reliable. This company have been made and designed, manufacture and sell microprocessor, basically the components from the laptops. In Malaysia, they only operated certainly at Penang from 1972 and then they expand to the Kolim, Kedah, high tech from 1996, and the CEO returned to the facilities visit for just in 2025. For the risk management governance, they need to ensure that in order to control the risk inside of the organization that we choose is Intel, they need to view from every aspects. For example, from my point, first is for board level oversight, which means the board of directors and also the top management, they need to implement enterprise risk management (ERM) and evaluate the company risk and guarantee ensure them they need to comply with the legal and ethical requirements. Then they are following the Intel's corporate governance guidelines, code of conduct and committee charters. Next, second point, they need to find the governance in risk audit and finance committee to ensure that the costing and internal control for the treasury and also treasury operation. Third point, ethics and compliance governance. They need to ensure that from Intel code of conduct has been conducted to ensure that there is a guideline for anti-corruption, compliance with trade, piracy, and also anti-retaliation. Number 4, cyber and product security risk. Cybersecurity and product security is very main responsibility for the companies to examine the risk exposure. And last but not least, supply chain and responsible mineral risk. This Intel responsible mineral source policy have also followed the guidelines and extend to ensure that whatever supply chains that is succeed and sufficient for the resource to Intel manufacture the components.
Hello everyone, my name is Uyushin and I will be presenting the section 3, which is Risk Management Framework. For a global giant like Intel, we cannot use a rigid one-size-fits-all approach. Therefore, we recommend adopting the ISO 31000 2018 Risk Management Standard. We chose this standard because it is customizable and dynamic. Intel operates everywhere from fabrication plants in Penang and Kulim to R&D centers in Israel. ISO 31000 allows us to integrate risk management into every level of the company, from the board of directors down to the engineers on the factory floor, rather than keeping it isolated in a separate department. To apply this framework, we established the context using the RASP model, which stands for Risk Architecture, Strategy, and Protocols. Externally, we are operating in a hostile environment defined by trade wars, export bans like those in China, and hyper-competition from rivals like Nvidia. Internally, we are pushing the IDM 2.0 strategy, which involves massive capital spending to build new foundries. However, this is challenged by a critical shortage of skilled semiconductor engineers. From number order, this brings us to our risk strategy. Intel must adopt a diversified risk appetite. We have a high risk appetite for strategy and innovation. To achieve our mission of world-changing technology, we must take big risks in R&D and expansion. However, we have a low risk appetite for operations and compliance. We have zero tolerance for factory shutdowns and legal violations because we must maintain the trust of our government partners and customers.
Good day, I'm Chia-Ming Yu. I'm here to present the risk architecture for Intel Corporation. The architecture serves as the structure framework that supports our entire risk management process. The primary purpose of this architecture is to ensure that critical risk information flows efficiently from our operation teams directly to the board of directors. Our strategy follows an integrated approach, embedding corporate responsibility throughout every level of the global organizations. Our goal is to prevent information silos and ensure that management can engage in timely, data-driven decision-making to protect Intel's interests. 4.2 Key Roles and Responsibilities. To maintain accountability across all levels, we have defined specific responsibilities for key stakeholders. The Audit and Finance Committees act as our central risk and control hub, monitoring financial reporting, cybersecurity and product security. Our global risk management and compliance teams function as the central intelligence hub, analyzing global trends to maintain the corporate risk register. The Chief Compliance Officer enforces the code of conduct and provides regular updates to the Committee on Compliance Efficiency. At the management level, department and business unit heads validate incoming risks and implement quick fix for operation issues. Finally, our risks originators, consisting of an engineer and staff insights like our Penang or coding fabs, serve as the company's eyes and ears on the ground. These are the 5-level reporting process. We utilize a 5-level bottom-up reporting process. It begins at level 1. We identify by frontline staff during daily operations. At level 2, department heads verify the severity of these hazards. Level 3, involve the global risk team analyzing these reports to identify broader global trends. Risks that reach level 4 are reviewed by the audit and finance committee to improve mitigations budgets for high priority threats. This process culminated at level 5, where the board of direct provides final oversight to ensure that Intel's risk management remains aligned with our strategic goals, shareholder interests. 4.3 Communication and reporting channels. A structured architecture requires standardized communication channels to move data effectively. Initial risk reporting allows our originators to report immediately operational hazards, such as equipment breakdown, to their department heads. Significant issues are then moved via consolidated risk reporting to the audit and finance committee to address red zone risks, such as trade wars or raw material costs. For executive budget approval, we also conduct quarterly updates to keep our risks register living, with new data on likelihood and impact score. Finally, board executive sessions provide necessary oversight on strategic risks that could threaten Intel's long-term survival.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Gaming Hong. Now moving on to Part 5 Digital List Protocol. To ensure information flows efficiently from the factory floor to the board of directors, we design a list reporting flow chart. The goal is to prevent information silos so leadership can act before a small grill becomes a global crisis. The flow has 5 distinct levels. Level 1, which is identification. Frontline staff identify this during daily operations. The level 2 is review. Department heads filter this report, fixing the small issues immediately and escalating only the serious one. Level 3, which is analysis. The global list team connects the dots to spot the worldwide trends. Going on to level 4, which is decision. The audit and finance committee reviews high priority lists and approve budgets for mitigation. Last, which is the level 5, oversight. Finally, threats to Intel's survival liaise the boards of directors. Next, we have the list register. This is Intel's central database where we quantify every list using a standard rating for likelihood and impact. Looking at the key findings from our analysis, when we make these scores a worrying pattern image, Intel's list profile is heavily concentrated in the red zone. These are the M3 lists. Specifically, if you look at our top 3 tracks, which is the track wars R01, rising raw material costs R04, and aggressive competition from NVIDIA R06. They all share one common track. They are external factors. This is a critical insight for the board. It means Intel is not failing because of internal mistake or bad process. It is being squeezed by outside force it cannot control because we cannot fix the economy or stop a trade war. Our strategy cannot just be about prevention.
My name is Chai Xiang. Based on the risk matrix, several risks show the highest severity due to their high likelihood and high impact. These include rising raw material prices, global economic slowdown, shortage of skilled semiconductor engineers, cybersecurity breaches, and trade wars or export bans. Among these, rising raw material prices is the most critical risk, as it scores the maximum of both likelihood and impact. These risks pose serious threats to Intel's cost structure, production capability, market demand, and intellectual property. Therefore, they require immediate attention, strong mitigation strategies, and close monitoring by top management. In addition to the higher severity risks, there are several other significant risks that Intel needs to manage carefully. These include manufacturing equipment breakdown, low production yield rates, delays in new chip development, and changes in government policies or tax regulations. Although these risks have lower likelihood or impact compared to the extreme risks, they can still cause operational disruption and affect performance if not properly.
The risk heat map provides a visual overview of Intel's risk exposure by plotting risks based on their likelihood and impact. The color scale from green to red shows increasing risk severity, with red indicating extreme risk levels. From the heat map, several risks are concentrated in the top right red zone, meaning they are both highly likely and highly impactful. These include risks such as rising raw material price, global economic slowdown, talent shortage, cybersecurity threats, and trade restrictions. Risk number 4 stands out as the most critical risk, as it has the highest likelihood and impact. Other risks are mainly located in the yellow and orange zone, which represent medium to high risk levels. These risks generally have moderate likelihood or impact and are mostly related to operational and regulatory issues. They can be managed through its existing controls, monitoring, and preventive measures.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Aiman Firdaus bin Jamaluddin, and I will explain about Intel risk. To the risk, we obviously need to understand about risk response. First, let's start with what kind of strategy Intel could take, which is risk avoidance, risk mitigation, risk acceptance, and risk transfer. We need to do risk avoidance is stopping the activity that put Intel in an unacceptable risk. Risk mitigation is reducing the likelihood of impact of risk, while risk acceptance is acknowledging risks that cannot be economically mitigated while monitoring them. Risk transfer, reducing financial risk through partnership, insurance, or government support. Okay, let's look for an example. Okay, let's start with the highest likelihood and the highest impact, which is risk 4, which talk about the rising raw material costs. The response that Intel have is through risk mitigation, and what they do is through long-term supplier contract and things like supplier diversification and strategic inventory management, and they're also optimizing the process. And lastly, another example for risk response is risk 9, supply chain disruption. The response strategy is risk mitigation and risk sharing. Or a good supply chain, they have multiple different supplier, and they have multi-sourcing strategy to ensure that they are not dependent on one supplier. They could have like buffer inventory, they could have good partnership. So this is like how Intel respond towards certain risks, because each risk they need to find what response strategy they have, and then what they could do. Depending on that, they could respond toward each of the.
My name is Chen Jun, and I would like to move to section 8, which is the less scale. First is the need of customization. We learned that a one-size-fits-all approach simply does not work for a complex multinational company like Intel. We specifically recommend ISO 31000 because of its flexibility. Risk management cannot sit in a silo, but it must be integrated into every layer of the organization. This means the framework must connect the high-level board strategy directly to the operational reality on the factory floor, such as those here in Penang help. Second, we observe the dominance of external risks. When we look at the heat map, the most severe threats were not internal operational failures, but external forces. As you can see, trade wars and rising raw material costs score the maximum severity of 25 out of 25. The lesson here is that operational excellence alone is not enough for survival. Intel must focus on risk-sharing strategy, such as leveraging government support like the CHIPS Act, to withstand this uncontrollable global shift. Third is the importance of the diversive risk appetite. We discover that Intel needs a dual approach. On one hand, Intel must have a high appetite for strategic risk. To compete with eager rivals like Nvidia and AMD, they must accept the financial risk of building new foundries. On the other hand, they must have a low appetite for operational risk. There is zero tolerance for safety issues or compliance breach. Success requires balancing this aggressive growth with foundational stability. Finally, lesson 4, which is the bottom-up communications. We recognize the limit of the executive views because top management cannot see every hazard on the ground. This highlights of the critical role of the risk originators between the engineers and staff who act as the eyes and ears of the company. We established that a structured protocol is essential to move information from level 1, which is the factory floor, all the way to level 5, which is the board. This early detection system is what prevents minor equipment breakdowns from escalating into global supply war. Thank you.